Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. In the spirit of the trees, in the spirit of living nature, of which we are a part, and with deep gratitude to all the generations before us that have brought us to the present moment, I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. This is our final session before we take a break for the month of August, while most of our staff and 90 people gather together for our annual pilgrimage in Chartres. And so this is a particularly momentous time to bring Humanity Rising, that for the last 2.5 years and over 531 sessions as of today has just continually brought all of you as much diversity as we can gather, representing human goodness in the world, and the impulse and the prayer that humanity in this extraordinary time will rise and grace both the larger planetary ecology, but also the human future with the kind of vision and audacious faith in those yet unborn, that humanity, even under the current duress, is capable of greatness and can secure the future for all of us unto the 7th generation. So I want to begin our program today by inviting Connie Zweig, who's a best-selling author of a number of books on the shadow. And she's preparing a course for Ubiquity University on shadow work, and also later in the year, an entire week that she's putting together on shadow and how those of us who are aging can shift our consciousness in a very transformational way. All of us know that the world is in the grip of shadow right now, whether it's runaway climate change, whether it's economic and political duress, whether it's the challenges to democracy, whether it's rising stresses due to 2.5 years of pandemic. All of us are feeling shadow. So we felt that one of the things that we could do through Humanity Rising and offered through Ubiquity University is allow someone of Connie's caliber and depth of insight as a Jungian psychologist to lead us in how we grapple with shadow and how we transform lead into gold. So Connie, thank you, and say a few words about the course and a few words about the challenges of transforming shadow in our time.
Jim, thank you. I'm always so moved by your introductions every day. And so today, I'm honored that it includes me. So starting on September 7th, we'll do 4 classes on finding the gold in your dark side on Ubiquity University. And the first class will be all about meeting your own shadow. Have you ever noticed that there's a part of you that seems to be out of your control? A part of you that you don't like, that you might want to hide, maybe even feel shame about? Maybe you criticize your partner and can't seem to stop, or you can't control your eating, or you feel a mood that comes and goes that you have no influence over. So we can say in those situations that you're meeting a part of you that's unconscious and that emerges from time to time or even erupts in perhaps self-destructive or hurtful ways. And then in the second class, we're going to look at shadow boxing with our partners. So how does our individual shadow show up in our relationships? Could be intimate or family or friendships. How does that part of us show up in a way that sabotages our intimacy? So each time a shadow emerges, it sabotages our conscious intentions because the unconscious has a different agenda from the ego. And so we're going to see that, we're going to examine that in both our individual world and our relational worlds. And then the third class is going to be a little different. It's going to teach you to review your life and look at what was stuffed into the shadow during your lifespan. This is what Carl Jung called the unlived life. And what do you want to reclaim from that now? What do you want to move from the unconscious into your conscious awareness and express now? And then the fourth class, as Jim mentioned, is going to be meeting the shadows of age. And anybody over 50 will want to be looking at your unconscious beliefs, images, associations with aging, because it turns out that they actually shape our experience of age. And research, when I found out that research has shown this, I was just blown away. So I look forward to seeing you there in October, late October. I'll return to Humanity Rising with a stellar cast of spiritual teachers and elders to explore aging for 5 mornings with you. So thank you, Jim. Thank you for inviting me to teach on both of your platforms.
Thank you so much, Connie. I can't think of a more timely and urgently necessary endeavor for us all than to explore our shadow, guided by someone like you, particularly in terms of our relationships. It reminds me of Sartre's great line that hell is other people. Just getting along with other people is particularly under, increasing stress that we're all feeling is a real challenge.
It's a real challenge. And we see it every day in the headlines because groups have shadows too. Sure. So if we look at the political situation, the cultural, social situation, there's a lot of projection going on. And that means attributing our unconscious traits to other people, individuals, and groups. So we can explore that as well.
Good. Thank you, Connie. I really appreciate everything that you do in your work. And the course, everyone, is going to be in September. I just put the link in the chat box for those of you watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. You can go to ubiquityuniversity.org and then click on our live courses link, and you'll see all of our live courses, but look for Shadow Work with Connie Zweig. Thank you, Connie.
Jim, have a magical mystery tour to Chartres.
We will indeed. We will indeed. Okay, everyone, let's just take a moment before we dive into our program today and just center ourselves in our bodies. The realization that our bodies are nature. Me talking to you is nature talking, you listening is nature listening. We are nature communing with itself. And in your body, take a few deep breaths and close your eyes. And for the next minute or so, as we listen to the sounds of the Ave Maria, let us feel deep gratitude, deep thanksgiving that we're alive in this most extraordinary moment in the human journey, that we have each other, that we have spirit, that we have Mother Earth, and we have within all of us everything that we need to create a future worthy of our children. Thank you, everyone. I love these pauses for heart coherence where I feel all of you as best I can. And today I just felt deep love for what we do. I feel deeply grateful to all of you for your support, for your ongoing constancy, day by day, 531 sessions now of Humanity Rising. And we were thinking, how do we end 7 months of continuous broadcasting before taking a break for our pilgrimage? And it was Kurt Kruger that said, let's do something on laughter. Let's do something on joy. Let's do something on happiness. And I thought, what a great idea. So I want to thank Kurt for this, who you all know, and Carolyn Baumgartner of the Peace Lab. They've been on many times. So Kurt, Carolyn, thank you so much for this inspirational close to 7 months of continuous programming. And let us turn to laughter, happiness, joy for the next hour or so. And I turn the program over to you with deep gratitude and deep respect for everything that you do.
Thank you, Jim. It's such a great intro. It piggybacks exactly on the excitement that we have to share the smile and amplify the heart coherence. So today is a time of refreshment. And to continue on what Jim started for us, we're just going to, if I can invite Sebastian and Steve and Raheen and Mitch to turn their cameras on. And we are going to pause for a moment and share the power of the smile with you guys. And I want you to smile too and feel each of us look at each other and notice the experience that we're having smiling and seeing someone else smile. And Jim, you're welcome to stay on camera and participate in this as also. So everybody that is watching, feel the smile. Notice the energy in the space. Feel the space that a smile offers. The invitation of capacity could be just a gentle smile. It could be a really big, joyous, full smile. It could simply be the thought of a smile. Let gratitude fill this space. How does that feel? Indeed, this is a time for refreshment, to explore the invitation. If we interject just a little bit more opportunity for smiles and laughter and humor, then why not? What's the other option, right? It makes a lot more sense to give space to the smile. So today we're going to take a journey in that space with you. And Kurt and I like to exchange pictures. We do a lot visually. Our minds process things by flowers and clouds, and smiles are very abstract in a lot of ways. Also, it doesn't have to be a physical, facial smile. We can observe and notice the energetics of a smile in infinite ways. With Kurt, he tells me about going on his walks and he sends pictures and he shares things. And I call it his sit and see time. So Kurt, would you like to share for just a moment to get us started on how it feels when you go for a walk, your iteration of the sit and see, the smile that permeates to you?
Well, as a 94,000-year-old person, I've been able to dive back. The only reason you get so old is to be able to be thee like a little child. And then these little walks. And it's a place that I used to hike when I was a child. up into these hills where I live now. And I sit down anywhere and just simply be there and look at rocks or little twigs or insects. And it brings such a contentment that there gets to be this simple smile, reminding me of when I get to look at a few-month-old's eyes. I don't know how you can stop from smiling when we look into somebody's eyes at that age, so pure. And this is what we're about. So here we get to explore these magical people that are just like you. Some of us look at life in a different way. And we get to put on the nice little either kaleidoscope eyes where we just tweak it a little bit and we see, oh, look at this hummingbird that just flew by. That literally happened to me when I was sitting outside this morning with my feet planted on the earth. And I thought, we get to have this program today. And it brought a smile to my face. And as soon as I smiled, right across about 15 feet away, a hummingbird flew up right to this bougainvillea, this beautiful flowering plant. And it happens to be one of my special animals because it can go forward or back and very fast and all that. Lighten up. Just be so peaceful. And this is what walks can do, or just observing nature, or seeing anybody crack a smile. It's contagious. So this is what I'd like to invite you all to do with us, is throughout this program, see if you can be triggered back into just a little smile and see what it does for you, or maybe a bigger one. We have an adventure today. And so I pass it on to the next person who's guided to offer your joy.
Raheen, it feels like that what you shared with us about the opportunity to interject the concept of a smile, where one could also just as much insert pain, anger, hurt, sorrow. Would you like to kind of show an alternate view of it doesn't always have to be the happy place that instigates and activates the smile?
Yeah, I would love to. And I didn't know, Kurt, that you also love taking photos on your walks, because I go on a walk every day and I take a lot of photos. So I'm definitely going to share those. Right. But my brother got diagnosed with cancer a couple years back, and he is all good. He fought off cancer very heroically, which is awesome. But recently we went on for a checkup, and that was a checkup that would tell whether he does still have cancer or he is fully recovered. And so I remember when I went in there, the same place that I went for, years, I was brought to tears. I'm not a crying in public person. So I was like, okay, I'm going to see you guys later. You go in for the checkup. And I sat in a corner and I saw so many people. And I saw this one particular mother with a very young child in her lap. And she just smiled at me because I was crying my eyes out. So she just smiled at me and I stopped crying and I smiled, and I really felt that smile inside me, because that made me realize if someone that is going through exactly what we were going through like a year or two ago, if she's smiling at me, then I should be happy that I'm in a position where my brother's recovered. So it was really beautiful. And then we had a talk, and it was really cool because I was like, I was crying and you were smiling at me. Aren't you sad? Don't you have, feelings inside you? And she's like, I do, but it was sadder for me to see you there cry, because I would love to be in a position that you are today. That is our dream. And then I realized that I'm so blessed And being blessed like this means that I need to spread that charm. So yeah, I smile at random people. Some people think it's pretty creepy, but some people actually would
Isn't that
smile
sad?
back. That is very sad. People just stare at you, be like, what are you doing? But just continue that smile and just that happiness and give off that energy. So yeah.
Step back for a moment, Raheen, though. This is like someone might say, oh, well, that's because he's doing better. What about when you were in the moment of, you told us in one of our talks that as we've been getting to know each other, how it wasn't always that he was in remission or he's getting better. How did Raheen first seek the solace of the smile, the potential, the possibility? You told us about how you decided, you made the choice, the conscious choice, what you were going to make this mean, the value that it could be, even if your brother or while your brother was sick. And way back then when you didn't know what it was going to be and you couldn't say, well, he's better now. How did you interject and activate the power of allowing something other than what seemingly appeared to be pain and darkness and all of that? How did you seek the smile then?
I remember that it was a lot of friends, I had a big group of friends. A lot of them actually stopped talking to me because my brother had cancer, which made no sense back then, doesn't make sense now either. But I remember like the friends that I was in, I was always very happy and I was always like a class clown and I loved making people smile. And when I'd go to the hospital, I would definitely cry because I would go there very, very rarely because I'd start crying in the beginning. And then I'd make my mom laugh and then I'd make my brother laugh and my dad laugh. And that is when I decided that what if me making all the people that are sad and frustrated laugh would make me laugh too, but my community, my people around me happier in general, and a world a better place. And so I started doing stand-up comedy. So I remember like I was 10 when I started writing my material. So back at 10, which is like 5 years ago at this point, it was that I just wrote about funny aunties and the weird experiences I'd had as a 10-year-old. And people laughed on that. And I went on stand-up comedy. Like I started from open mics to shows. And my brother, even at times that he wasn't able to walk, he would actually come to my shows. And it was very special to me. And it meant the world that my family was there and they helped me write and they saw me perform. And for them, like, my mom, she was saying this the other day too, that back when this whole thing was happening, but you were happy and we saw you smile and make other people laugh. At least we were in a happy place in a sense where we knew that even if one of our children isn't at their best place, one is, and she's going to get us there. She's going to help other people go through harder times too.
Representing the community. Yeah.
And we laughed through the whole journey. And now it looks like, yesterday that I was at an open mic and today, I talk to so many people around the world and I'm doing what I love. So
it makes me think of Robin Williams in the movie Patch Adams. So he was older when he went through medical school and everybody kind of made fun of him and he put the clown nose and he went into the cancer patient ward and they gave him a hard time. Like, this is the hospital. You're supposed to be serious here. So he was the older version. You're the younger version. Like, why not offer the hardship, the challenge, the space that needs the smile the most? I mean, that's if we can shift that and say the laughter, the humor, the smiles, when it's missing, when it's needed the most, why not offer it then? And Steve, this feels like the perfect lead into you since Raheen introduced her stand-up comedy stuff. That how do you, Steve, activate and offer smiles and laughter and humor and give people the invitation to incorporate it more?
Thank you. First of all, it's great to be part of this program with these people and Ubiquity University. I've always wanted to be everywhere all at once. Now I know where to go. So first of all, I want to say something about smiling because in this wonderful book that Marcy Shimoff wrote years ago called Happy for No Reason, and no reason is good enough reason, she said that physiologically, when you smile, it actually changes your body chemistry. So when you do this, even when you don't feel like it, it actually creates feel-good hormones. So when you allow yourself to be in that space, you actually change your physiology. And I think that there's a lot. What humor does, I think, is it breaks the trance of the mind. It breaks the trance of it's this or that, right? Because it always offers a playful and surprising third way. So, for example, why do jokes always come in threes? A minister, a priest, and a rabbi, right? So a minister, a priest, and a rabbi are discussing their legacy. How do they want to be remembered? What do they want the eulogist to be saying when they're laying there at their funeral? And the priest said, well, I want them to be saying he was a holy man and a leader of his flock. And the minister said, well, I want them to be saying he was a family man and a pillar of his community. And the rabbi said, I want them to be saying, look, I think he's breathing. So a joke always busts the trance of duality, and that makes us smile because, as you can see, with all of the polarization going on, people seem to be trapped in their minds. And the aha in the wake of the ha-ha gives us a ah, where we leave the dueling dualities of the mind for the unity of the heart.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Sebastian, this is the perfect lead in to the phrase that you said the other day: laughter opens the lungs and ventilates the spirit. So I want us to all listen to what Steve said. The smile, how we started the program, the space, the interjection of the possibility of more, of infinite presenting itself. And then let's take it to the level of laughter. Sebastian offers that many, many different avenues. Laughter opens the lungs and ventilates the spirit. Tell us about that, Sebastian.
Yeah, I think laughter is such, so smiling, laughter, humor, all of the different expressions of laughter effectively activate our built-in laughter circuitry. And so you can take this, so it's easy to forget that, so it is easy to forget that life is good, life is easy in the face of pain and suffering. I spent the first decade of my life in England as a corporate Jedi, thinking how absurd English humor was. I have a flatmate who loved every week specific shows and who laugh, and I would see him feel good while I was sad and depressed, thinking, what an idiot. Until I came to a point where knowing that I was really good at being serious, that stopped being interesting. And I wanted to get some of what he was having, even though I didn't get it. And a few things happened, and I realized that I could just, as easy as it sounded, just start to activate my laughter circuitry by choosing to laugh. Not faking, not forcing, just choosing and allowing. Standing with a smile and upgrading to a giggle, going on a walk, asking myself, well, how would the sky laugh? How would this car laugh? Asking questions that didn't quite make sense, but
exactly what I was thinking.
kind of priming the pump. And then a friend of mine made a comment that kind of hit me and put me on a different track. And the comment was, look, Sebastian, laughing alone is kind of a sad thing because it's such a shared experience. And so I said, well, I hadn't thought about that. And so I went into, how can I laugh more, have this shared experience with others? Where there's love, there's laughter, always. Where there is joy, where there is play, there is laughter, always. So I started on this track of, starting by choosing and finding a few options to initiate with willing, like-minded people, willing to explore possibilities, play together in a spirit of sharing and loving, and that took on a life of its own. As Raheen and Steve were saying, there's three things I wrote down I wanted to share with you. I remember this quote. It's from the Christian tradition, but it applies to all spiritual tradition. A man asks a monk, "Sir, could you please summarize the wisdom of the Bible in one sentence?" And the monk says, "Yes, I can." You don't know what you're missing. It's the same thing with laughter. It's easy to believe, but because we have it built in that we know everything about it, where in fact there is a lot, and a lot isn't even the beginning of the shadow of a fraction of one of what there is to discover. It's a big field. So it starts with Yeah, smile. Choose to smile. Strangers at a bus stop. Just choose to see strangers smiling and engage with others. I also write down that it's a journey from the unconscious to the conscious. Looking at the Bible, and I'm not specifically focusing on Christian tradition, but there are 38 instances of laughter mentioned in the Bible. Laughing, laughter. 38. 21 of those are a laughter of derision, making fun of. That has its value, but it won't really empower you because it takes people down. Then you've got the second category, the laughter of celebration, of dance, of joy, and that's so this is, I believe from memory, you've got 8 mentions. And the third category has 6 mentions, which is the laughter of celebrating life, the best in humanity, laughing because we can. And so from that perspective, I think there's a lot to be explored. And a tremendous, my mouth is too small and the words are too big to express how much we can all benefit from such a simple activity, from in all of its various expressions.
A lot has been put into this space. Let's just take a moment with Raheen and Steve and Sebastian and Kurt and everything that's here, the possibility, the fullness of this. And it's funny, as Sebastian was talking, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's what I'd do is, how does the cloud smile at us? What are the echoes and the reverberations and the mirroring that happens all around us? Imagine how laughter can be delivered to us besides from another individual. And imagine that we're always sharing that smile, because anytime we do it, we're sharing it with ourselves. How does that feel? How does that land? How does that resonate with you to gift yourself? Like Raheen was saying, in any circumstance, there's always room for happiness and joy and smile, because it's needed even more. Towers and resonance and amplification, each of us standing with infinite capacity, possibility, the moment being fully presenting the opportunity.
If I may, I'd like to add one thing to this.
Absolutely.
I think laughter is one of the highest form of political expression, because it is a declaration of independence from fear, from stress, from anger. It's an affirmation of this is who I am, and I will not let fear. I can be touched by fear, but I will not let it own me.
Absolutely. So it doesn't mean, like Raheen was saying, it doesn't mean deny anything or resist anything or not be upset or angry. Just don't get stuck somewhere. Allow the natural organic form of resonance to happen. So Sebastian, I was thinking that maybe we do a little popcorn. Each of us come on our mics and let's laugh. Let's let the audience feel what it feels like. So maybe one of us smiles, but I'd like for us to not rotate. At some point, each of us contribute our voice to laughter, and people who are in the audience participate. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Yeah. So, can I suggest an activity? Very simple, very short.
Absolutely.
It's a 2-part activity, right? Part 1, I invite you, so us now and anybody else who's all of the other people who are listening to this, I invite you to share the best expression of your worst laughter. This is part 1, the best expression of the worst type. Ready, set, go. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. No, please do go. Ha 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 ha.
Mitch, Steve, Kurt, you got to come off of mute.
All right, that's fine. Okay, that is not what you want. So we're not going to repeat that. Cool. Now, as a flip side, how would your own laughter sound like now if it was the best expression of love for the people you love the most, about to die? That's your last gift. So how would you express all of the love you have for them in laughter sound, like right now? Go.
Woohoo!
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's one thing to say, I'm not afraid of death, but somehow to laugh about it changes everything. It embodies it. It doesn't deny it. It's a choice. I'm sad, but I'm happy as well. I can focus on what we've had and what, as opposed to what we will not have anymore. Yeah. So it's why is life happening for me as opposed to me?
With me, even.
With me, even.
Yes.
So that you can take this in many directions,
Mhm.
and it's all beautiful.
And Mitch, I'm very eager to hear what has culminated within you to share into this space. What gift do you have to offer us?
Wow. Thank you for asking. And I'm thrilled to be here with all these great people, visible and invisible. So much in response to your question. The first thing that comes to mind is in response to something Sebastian said about the 28 ways, I believe that was the number or 38 that were referred to in the Bible. And that the first level was laughter of derision, which is all too common these days. If you go to most stand-up comedy clubs, it's a lot about making fun of people and derision. If you work in a corporation, laughter is often used as a weapon. It's a way to hurt people. People become the so-called butt of jokes. But on the other side, the flip side, Sebastian mentioned the celebration of life kind of laughter. And to me, that's the goal. That's the sweet spot. That's the nectar. How to feel, how to experience the laughter that comes from celebration of life, from the joy of life, from the love of life. That is the $64 trillion question for everybody on this call and on the planet. It's our responsibility, without it being heavy, to find the way there. And there are many paths, there are many movements, there's many teachers, there's many approaches to this. Everyone has to find it for themselves, but ultimately, that's the game, to come from the place of the celebration of life. And the second response to your question, Caroline, you were talking about death. I have a friend that's dying. He's on his deathbed now. And he's 83, brilliant musician. He's on his way out. He probably has a week to live. And when I visit him, I bring him a chocolate milkshake at his request, watching him with his last breath, really, be able to suck the sweetness from that glass into his body. It always brings a smile to his face. All of life, all of the existential despair, all of his regrets, all of whatever are gone in that moment. There's an essential, elemental, perfect and pure moment of sweetness, and we laugh and we smile. And it's not gallows humor. It's not, laughter as a defense against being mortal. It's the laughter of the celebration of life. And that, to me, is my greatest aspiration. I'm certainly not always there, but I am often. And I know the people on this call, it's the same thing. That's our aspiration, to be in the place from whence laughter springs. Call it what you will, joy, love, or whatever. That's the goal of life, and that's the aspiration we all have. And I invite everyone to follow that path, whatever it is for them.
I like the word emphasizing sweetness. We can insert anything there, but allowing the sweetness of the moment to present itself and to integrate it. We have to be willing to see it. Whether it's a hummingbird or whether it's a chocolate milkshake with our friend who's requested that because it brings him joy. So why choose this? What's your better plan, as Sebastian said the other day? And my version of that is, why not now? It's the best time to apply it. If it's missing, if it's needed, if it's not felt, put it in there. Add a little bit of laughter in that milkshake. I'm sure the mojo that you feel on the journey to go pick up the milkshake. You're like, this is full of pure love and laughter. And I am rejoicing in the privilege of delivering this milkshake. It's that simple. It's that simple, really. I mean, it is the pause of allowing ourselves to have an emotional experience that's positive, no matter how simple it is. Inserting the pause to find a reason that you could smile or laugh or be happy and share. Kurt, be happy and share.
I was shocked the other day, literally really shocked, that a friend of mine phoned and said she can't be on our Peacemaker Circle today because her brother committed suicide. And for some reason, this body did a, ha! Oh, he's free! He's been in pain for so long, he's free! And then she told me, that was so perfect as we talked a little bit more and so on, that just a week before, she was at a retreat. And she did this process at this special retreat. And she saw her brother, who was an addict, who was suffering so much of his life because of his addiction. And she not only forgave him, but sent him her love. And I said, my God, that freed him to go on and on, released him so that he could be free and soar.
And her.
And her freedom of the same thing. She was free, he was free, and all that came out from me initially was this, ha! And the Spirit came pouring forth about this. And it was exactly what she needed at that time to be free herself. So when we always look on the bright side of life, things change the kaleidoscope eyes. A big challenge in some situations, but Spirit can work through us so much when we lighten up, because we're light beings. And that's hard for some people to really grok, but that's my cup of tea right now. I pass the teacup.
I'm thinking of all the things that we've exchanged as we've joined together the last few weeks of this collective. There's a few words. I want to read this, and then I want to just kind of say a few words that I've written down that one of us has said. And then I want to just open it up to whoever feels led to share. So especially in light of what Kurt just said, if you need a spark for igniting that allowance of a smile, of laughter, of happiness, imagine what it could offer you. How could you release the friction, allow a pause, and feel the gift, the simplicity of being at ease? Empathy, compassion, understanding, the full spectrum. Some of the words that have stood out that one of us has said is, even Raheen was sharing some of the things that she experienced, or not just her, but in her peer group, hit by a situation, or all of a sudden, or pressure, or stressed, or something's not working out, or they're consumed. Then she said there was this transition, and they would talk about it. And we thought about, what is that click? What is that switch? It's allowance. It's a pause. The smile, the tools, the resilience, the mindset, the laugh out loud, the activation, the open to possibility, the switch, clarifying intention, alternatives, the circuitry, gathering together, filters. Who has something to share that can activate this invitation that we're offering. Raheen, I see you shaking your head. Mitch, hand up, whichever one of you guys would like to go first.
Mitch, do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first, just to break the concept that women go first. This conversation sparked a memory of my favorite quote on this topic. It's from Peter Ustinov. Comedy is simply a funny way of being serious. Take that in for a moment. Comedy is just a funny way of being serious, which very much relates to the phenomenon of the jester being the one often whom the king listened to. He listened to the fool. He listened to the jester. The jester had the ear of the king. There was something about humor, the expression of the joy that comes from humor, that leveled the playing field and made it accessible and easier for the king to listen to that member of the court as opposed to the grand vizier and all the people with fancy titles. In various spiritual paths, it's called crazy wisdom. So, and Steve, Swami Bianananda, talked earlier about, the same topic, that laughter and humor short circuits the dualistic mind, the right and wrong, the yes and no, the black and white, the you and me, us and them, that whole competitive mindset, the analytical mindset, the gift of humor, and of course, its second cousins, laughter and smiling, is for the individual, both the channel of that and the listener, if they're open, is going beyond that dualistic mindset and to experience oneness, presence, isness, joy, being, presence. So this is all a great tool and a pathway to a state of being that all human beings aspire to. That's my piece for now.
Raheen, feel free to share.
Yeah. So, I mean, the ideas back then were pretty fresher, so I've forgotten a lot of what I was supposed to say. But I think probably as I start saying, it'll come back. I think there are many things in the world. Example, laughter they can really help you, but they can help you as long as you allow for them to help you. Because if you're not allowing for anything to help you, then nothing and no one can help you. And so I feel like laughter is really freeing, because the thing that I really is really funny and I was really frustrated about when I was young was whenever I would get upset with my mom, I would not look at her. I would not talk to her because she would tell me a joke or she would say something that's going to make me laugh. And as soon as I would start laughing and I would let all the negative energy go, then I'd actually start feeling maybe it was my fault, or maybe, it wasn't quite her thing. I may have not reacted the best. And just with that let go of thoughts, I'd start acting normal. And then after we would laugh for a long time, I'd be like, oh my God, I was supposed to be upset with you. Don't do that. Don't make me laugh. So whenever I make new friends, when I first became friends with my best friend now, the first thing my mom told her was whenever she's upset, just make her laugh. And whenever she makes me laugh, I forget it. Then I start laughing. And then I'm like, don't do this, guys. You guys always make me forget all the negative thoughts and you guys make me come there. So I think it is very beautiful. I think laughter is a great way to connect, more than on a level of the way that I did stand up. Now, a thing about me is that I laugh very funny because I make these the more I laugh, the weirder the noises that I make while I'm laughing they get. And so many times when I sit in a group of people and I laugh or laugh on my own jokes, which is most of the time, it's just, they start laughing. And so I'm like, dude, I'm so funny. They're like, no, we're not laughing at the joke. We're laughing at the way you're laughing. And I'm like, so that be it. You guys are laughing. I made you laugh. That's the important part. So I was laughing with my brother the other day and my mom came in. She's like, what are you guys laughing about? and we were like rolling on the floor laughing. So and none of us had an idea about what we were laughing about. So we had long forgotten what we were laughing about. But whenever we'd come back, we'd look at each other and we'd laugh more. So I think it is a great way to connect and strengthen bonds and let go of negative energy as much weird as it can get, because then you're supposed to be upset with someone, then you become okay with it. But I think it's a beautiful way of how it connects together.
Yeah, it transcends and transmutes everything, and it really highlights perspective and perception. And when you were saying that, it made me think of all the different times where I've started laughing, and then your eyes start watering because you're laughing so hard, and then you're like, why are we laughing? And then other people are laughing. I was helping somebody decorate for a birthday party one time, and we were trying to hang balloons, and I don't even know how it started, but I was just laughing. And then we were like, why are we laughing? I don't know. It's that synergy of common space, the complete connectivity. Steve, please share.
Okay. Yeah, there's a really interesting book written by a brain scientist named Scott Weems called Why We Laugh and When. And he said that laughter really comes from this sense of surprise and delight. And sometimes that's what really changes the mood. I was out on a hike with a friend of mine who loves humor, and so we're on the trail, and there's a woman there walking a dog, and we smile at each other. And he says to the woman walking a dog, he says, man goes to a psychiatrist. He says, I think I'm a dog. Psychiatrist says, then get off my couch. And this woman just burst out laughing. It was a complete surprise to her. She wasn't expecting to have a joke entertain her on the path, but you could see just in the change of expression in her face that feeling was something she was going to take with her. How long, we don't know. But if we commit random acts of comedy that don't harm anybody, they just kind of are ways for us to engage with people that we meet and create a smile and so on. You have no idea how that's going to change people.
It brings harmony.
No harm in harmony, that's for sure. And no sin in synergy.
To us or them, Mitch.
Right.
Yeah, I want to just speak to what Steve said about random acts of comedy. About, 30 years ago, I moved from New York City to Los Angeles. And New York City really is like a mecca for funny people and laughter and shtick and improv, and people are so close together. Humor is essential to survive on the streets. And I was born in New York, so I've been, saturated with New York kind of humor. And I got to LA and I brought that sensibility with me to Los Angeles. And when first time I walked into a store and I brought that random acts of comedy moment that Steve was referring to, and none of the shopkeepers laughed or looked at me or smiled. They thought I was like odd and like a disturbance in the force. And I'm going, why is everyone so tight here? Culturally, it's interesting. Certain cultures or mini cultures are open immediately, spontaneously to humor, to laughter, to improv, to moments of delight, and others are more reserved. And you have to kind of navigate your way through that maze to get to the moment where that can be. Otherwise, you're interfering with them or you're disturbing them, and you certainly don't want to do that to anybody. Lay your humor or comedy on somebody who's not open to it. So I found that fascinating, the move from New York to LA.
And that seems backwards. It seems like you would have said the other way around as far as the West Coast stereotype versus, the hustle and bustle of the tightness of New York. It seems like it would have been the opposite move.
Depends on where he hangs out, that's and sometimes it's the company we keep or we get to have to keep or whatever. But there's times. I'm a Los Angeles person. I was born and raised. I haven't always laughed all my life, but it's a lot better to be laughing because it sure feels better. And this whole panel has brought back that joy of being into life. Each of us can bring what we've picked up today, little tidbits here or there, into our life to make it have a sigh of relief and maybe even a joyous laugh.
Sebastian, what's popping up for you?
Yeah. If you allow me, I'd like just to bounce on what Mitch was saying. So we can talk a long time about why laughter is good and all of the benefits of laughter. As far as I'm concerned, it's an untapped science. The next question, though, is how? How can I add more laughter and joy into my life? And the answer is you can't. It's not a process of adding. It's a process of letting go of what is blocking it from expression. So if you find yourself in an environment where people are negative or it is not aligned with who you want to be, then the next question is, well, do something, be clear as to what you want. It's easy to believe that we are victims of our environments when in fact we're not, we're actors. And it is easy to think, it's harder to embody. So if your environment isn't laughing, well, what could you do? There are 5 ways to shift your energies up. First one is laughter, in no particular order. So laughter, humor in any of its expression. Easy one would be singing, dancing, playing. And the 5th one is everything else. You can only shift your energies up when you engage in the present moment in something that you are attuned to, something creative, something that brings you outside of time and space into the here and now. In other words, outside of head space into heart space, because the head is the one that talks like, don't like, can, cannot, etc. But the heart cannot think, it can only feel. So start somewhere with a smile. Don't go for a walk and hug a tree, look at a flower, play with a child. What's missing is not the knowing. We have the knowledge. If you want to laugh, you can. It's the doing. So a lot of things I like to unpack there, but the essence is how. Well, start somewhere. Anywhere is a good place.
So Sebastian, when an organization hires you to show them the how, what's an example for you to interject, activate, offer them a tool in a company setting to offer that more?
Yeah. Well, the idea is that you cannot change any environment from the energy level at which the problems it's in were created. So you can't engage. I can engage at people at head level, because if that was where the issue was, if this is where the issue was, they would have fixed it to begin with. You have to change the structure. When you change the structure, every experience has a structure. When you change the structure, you change the experience. So it's one thing, like building. It feeds on what Raheen was saying. And many of you. It's one thing to say, I love you all, but when you have to laugh with someone that for whatever reason you are upset with, it kind of shifts the experience. So the process is one of less to more. Are you willing to come closer together? Okay, moving forward. Are you willing to shake hands? Can you smile? Let's come closer come closer. Can we wave and say hi? So the process I follow is very specific, but we go from less to more, engaging by choice intentionally, because we can, through the behaviors of connection, of well-being, of the world is safe and people are good, even though it may not appear to be that way. Why? Because A, why not? And B, what's your better plan? And so what happens is, very quickly, those who cannot process this because they're not ready will walk out, which is fine, great. But if you're willing to engage through the experience, like for example, I guess you all know that it's really hard to remain depressed if you go for a walk, for a run for an hour. You don't have to run for an hour to not be depressed. Just do something, move around. It's about the expression, the idea that emotions create emotions. Thoughts are electrochemical, and chemistry is always tied to specific behaviors. So if you choose to smile or not smile, this will cascade into a specific chemistry, which will cascade into a specific type of thought processes, and everything fits from there. So what are positive expressions? There's a fun game I want to suggest, a simple activity. I invite it. We don't have to do this right now, but it's easy to do every day. Make a list for today of your top 20 most inspiring words, whatever they are, and then strive tomorrow or today to use all of those words. Start there. Invariably, so love, abundance, magnificence, whatever the words are, use them and see how that shifts the conversation, shifts the energy, shifts the relationship that you have with the people you use those words with. you've got gazillions and more of ways to embody, implement, boost, let go of the shadow and move towards the light. It's the, I spent the most decade in my full-time laughter career moving away, not laughing to get closer to what I did want, but really to move away from what I didn't want. Yeah. 10 years, it's a long time. And I that's the process I had to follow. And effectively, I kept focusing on what I didn't want. And when I realized that, when I gained that awareness, it kind of started to shift everything. Now, it's not a process of moving. So the idea is not to smile and laugh, to do an effort, because, we're zen and cool, to forget just for a few seconds the pain and the sadness. That's not the idea. You want to embrace, this is how I feel, and life is pain and misery for all of us, but it doesn't mean it's not worth living. Quite the opposite. I feel that way, and I'm still going to choose to emote the best of who I am because I can.
It's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking. Is, to me, it's not moving away from or toward anything. It's a spontaneous expression of who I am. It's the allowance of me to occupy the space that I am and express that in all the ways, but particularly to be spontaneous and let laughter, like Raheen's example, like even, Patch Adams is a perfect example of the laughter is needed a lot in those spaces that feel and look at first glance like turmoil or hurt or anger or frustration or something that you would want to move away from. But then how do you lighten that? Share a smile with yourself, share a smile with somebody else. Look for the opportunity to be spontaneous in laughter. Focus on what you can get more of to get there to the space to occupy.
I'm not a humorist, but there's a joke I kind of like that makes the point. The question is, should you laugh every day? And the answer is, of course not. No, only if you want to feel good. Because if you want to feel sad, that's going to be very counterproductive.
Mitch.
Yeah.
Is this a sad day or a happy day, Mitch?
It's a happy day. Something that came to mind listening to my brother man, Sebastian. Isaac Asimov once said, the most important words in science is not eureka, but that's funny. And related to that is Nobel Prize winner Niels Bohr said, now that we have met with paradox, we have some hope of making progress. And both of them are referring to that moment where the tangle of the mind, where that discursive, analytical, overly logical, rational, and linear view of the world for a moment is untangled, a Red Sea parts. The bodily response to that is often laughter. And the person who activates laughter, whether it's your friend, your mother, your sister, a stand-up comedian, whoever, for that moment has helped the Red Sea part in those who are listening. And for a moment, or hopefully an extended moment, we experience what it's like to be beyond the rational, logical, linear mind into a place of presence and being. And that is glorious. That's one of the blessings of humor, laughter, and all of its cousins.
The paradox leads to the paradise, the perception. Yeah, Steve.
Very interesting that you mentioned paradise, Mitch. By the way, you and I we're both from New York. We probably both have a black belt and Borscht belt, which is how we were raised. But you mentioned Niels Bohr and you mentioned paradox, and one of my favorite stories involves Niels Bohr, who is a nuclear scientist and so on. And a reporter is coming to interview him, and she comes to his laboratory. He has a horseshoe above the door. She says, Professor Bohr, you're a great scientist. Do you really believe that a horseshoe is going to bring you good luck? He says, of course not. I think it's nonsense. And she said, well, then why is the horseshoe up there? And he said, well, because it works whether you believe in it or not. And so part of busting the mind and putting us into the heart is having that paradox, because life is really about paradox. It's like that famous Zen story about the guy who's hanging by a thin branch off a cliff, and he sees this beautiful strawberry, and he plucks the strawberry and eats it. And that sounds a lot like your friend drinking the milkshake. So that is what life provides us. It provides us with these moments of extreme sadness and extreme joy. And part of our journey here is navigating those spaces.
Totally.
Steve, two questions come to mind. What led you to Swami Bianananda? What does it offer you? And what does Swami offer others that Steve, in his form, does not as much so?
Well, that's very interesting. Well, first of all, I have to say that I did grow up around a lot of humor. And I was that kid in school. I think Rahim was referring to, being that child who, after the teacher is done laughing, she gives you a 0, right? So I was that kid. So I always had humor. And the life-changing experience for me was I was teaching at Wayne State University, teaching auto workers, labor history, and so on. Funny thing happened that wasn't that funny. I lost my job because they had to hire their tenured people. And the only job I could get was doing tree work in Ann Arbor, taking down trees that had Dutch elm disease, right? My Jewish mother, by the way, was afraid that I would catch Dutch elm disease, right? I said, Mom, people don't get Dutch elm disease. I said, but dogs get it. She goes, dogs get it. She was worried about Buster. She said, what happens to dogs? I said, they lose their bark. So while I'm working at this job, they put me with this new guy. He was a brilliant psychologist disguised as a truck driver. He and I started a funny newspaper to the people that we work with. We totally changed the workplace by shining a light on the shadows there through humor, and also creating a sense of playfulness and novelty in a place where things were ordinary. And while I'm working on this name flew into my head, Swami Bianananda. Now, I didn't know that Ananda meant bliss, but I knew that all the Swamis, Muktananda, Satchidananda, Yogananda, all had Ananda. And so when I started a publication that was more holistic publication, Swami Bianananda became our mascot. And I'm much more of an introvert, but it's kind of like the old ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Edgar Bergen being the mild-mannered introvert, Charlie McCarthy being this outrageous alter ego who can say anything and be outrageous and people would laugh. And so Swami is a larger-than-life character that gives me permission to step outside of my ordinary personality. Swami also gives off the sense of wisdom. So we say it's comedy disguises wisdom, wisdom disguises comedy. So that when I first started performing humor, it allowed me to step out of my self-conscious personality and create something that was outrageous, bigger than life, cartoony, that would allow me to laugh. And what I've learned from the Swami, coming from New York, where humor can be kind of brutal, is open-hearted humor. That's been the great gift that having the Swami character, I say I got struck by lightning during a brainstorm. That's how Swami came about. And that's what the gift has been to me, has made me more open-hearted, less defensive. And the humor is designed to heal the heart and free the mind.
I was just putting something very similar into the chat. I would like for us to pause for a moment and really breathe that in. There were so many things that you said that reached me, landed with me on the disguise, like what we think we see, and even the way that you said a person in a certain position, who we think they are, what we think they are. With me going hiking, I see that a lot, like somebody who is this person in their professional career and is anticipated to behave this way, but yet when they're roller skating or when they're hiking, they're just that individual being free. So how can we remove our disguises or what we the value or the representation that we cast on something else? And how can we lean into recognizing more, to see what's beyond, to offer all of it, a smile, laughter? How do we sit and have a cup of tea with laughter, with smiles, with happiness? How can we just have a cup of tea with the possibility of how we can spread this? For Kurt and I say this in every one of our programs, how can this be more than just a talk, more than just another program? Let there be seeds, roots. Let there be integration. Breathe it in and exhale it so that everybody around you can feel what you have felt today and share it. Let it be a tap that creates ripples, that cause waves of more smiles and more rainbows and more heart clouds. One of the things that anybody who knows me at all knows that hearts show up for me everywhere. In rocks, when I'm hiking, in clouds, in flowers. The center of a flower the other day was a perfect heart. Kurt seems to think that I'm creating them rather than them showing up.
Because you're attuned to them. It's a bit like wanting to buy, when you want to buy a new car, then that specific car starts to appear everywhere. So it's really about your attunement.
It is. It's alignment. Absolutely.
And how to initiate the whole thing. I rewatched recently a TED talk by Stuart Brown, and I think laughter in some ways is a way to activate our play circuitry. Animals and humans who do not play invariably end up being dysfunctional. And so it's wired in. This is hardwired, and this is we all have the aspiration to reconnect to the lightness and the connection. Most often, laughter comes out of social interactions with absolutely no reasons whatsoever. Hey, Steve. Hi, Joe. Because it's a cue that it's just, I'm not scary. I'm not an enemy, and we could be friends. So, yeah.
And how do we do that even when we're alone, or with our dogs, or with our cats, or with a tree, or, as you guys heard the other day, with a goat? Google gave me the honor of taking me on where I thought I was going on a hike, and I ended up on a road that didn't have a trail of any sort, and it said I had arrived. So I laughed and said, yay, I've arrived at nowhere with no trail. So I kept going to explore to see what else was there. And at the end of the road, a goat greeted me. So I rolled the window down and I'm like, hello, goat. Are you lost? Like, it was literally just standing there as if it was waiting for me, knowing that I was coming. So I laughed and said, well, I guess I was supposed to come down this road to meet the goat. And there was no reason to laugh. The reason was because it made sense, because it made the situation more enjoyable, because it was funny.
There's something very important here in what you're saying is when you ask yourself, how could I laugh? The answer is sometimes will come to you naturally. And if they don't, remember that you are not alone.
Ever.
So you can ask, you can search. It starts
ask the goat to appear, ask the cloud to appear.
For example, who says you can't have a conversation with the goat where, why not make both part of the dialogue and see what she says? It all starts with awareness. If you're not aware, then you just can't do anything. But if you are aware and do nothing, then you start to have an issue, because what are you choosing? And then you can hide behind, I don't want to, I can't, blah, 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 or just do it. Mind, this is one of the wisdom of the East, that mind, mind, breath, and body are always in a perfect synchronicity one with another within a scope of about 10 minutes. That means if your mind is one place and you start to breathe a different way or act out a different way, within the first 10 minutes, a war will ensue in your mind. Why am I doing this? Do I really want to smile? Do I really want to let go? Do I really want to feel good? And if the answer is yes, you will continue the behavior, and the behavior will create the chemistry that will change the thought processes. Unless you don't, unless the mind
or
wins.
Not, right.
And if the mind wins, then nothing changes, because that's what the mind wants, which is fine.
Raheen, I have a really good observation, a question for you. And I just noticed, sorry, that your hand was up because it's blended in with your background.
I just put it down because you mentioned my name, so I put it down.
But this is something that I feel like is a really valuable thing that you can offer here too. You've spoken about yourself and the laughter with your brother, but what I would love for people to hear also is when we choose it, when we empower ourselves, when we have the courage, when we make the effort, when we invest in it. How was your brother impacted because of the choice that Raheen made to see things in a positive way rather than feeling sorry for him? How have you seen that Raheen showing up as her natural organic self that feels resonant with you? How has that supported your brother, another?
I think now my brother is 8 years younger than me, so I'm almost 15 and he turned 7. So it's like an 8 years difference. That's like a lot of difference. And so naturally I'm like in the position where, you know, if I'm doing a thing a certain way, he would do it exactly the same. And so I have to be like really specific. I don't know what I'm doing.
Mindful.
Specific. Yeah, mindful, specific about what I'm doing. And when I started stand-up comedy, he'd go on shows with me, and I started doing networking events, and I started doing so many things. And now it's to a point, or it started actually a while ago, is that he knows everything that I do. I mean, Kurt is someone that everyone in our household knows. So, he knows Kurt. He knows, people that I talk to a lot or mention a lot. He knows all of them. He knows what I want to do. He sees me go into meetings. He sees me laugh, and he sees my old stand-up videos. And I think that makes him, because when someone is 7, I mean, they're really developing the way, that their personality is. But him at 7, he is that one person everyone in our community park knows. Everyone in our entire community knows. I would be walking by and they're like, "You're Ibrahim's sister?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am his sister." And for me, it is a joy because he is so confident. He's so outgoing. And what I love the most is that he is so comfortable talking about the fact that he is a cancer survivor. Like, he would mention it, and people always confirm with, my parents, for me, that is that actually the case? Because now he looks very different than what he looked when he was going through chemotherapy. So I think he looks up to me for always being there and not just going into my own bubble, rather than that, just popping if I was ever in one, and being out there in the world. So I think he really looks up to me, and he is very outgoing, very confident, a lot like me, actually. So yeah, I think it's really
So is everybody hearing the impact of harmony, the impact of allowance? It's not just, "Oh, that's nice, I'm going to smile." It's residual, it reverberates, it echoes back to us, it's amplified. It's an incredible opportunity. It's an incredible gift to share with yourself and to share with others, to give freely and receive freely, and to see the harmony, the synergy with every choice that we make. And Kurt, you had your hand up, so I'd like for you to have the opportunity to share.
Well, I put it down because many, many years ago, I designed a happiness class as an elective class in physical education at a ghetto school in Los Angeles. And I had some crazy things and I never knew what I was doing, so to speak, except I just gave it a go. I picked up this and picked up that. So I had them actually go pick up things. I said, "Okay, here's our PE class. We're going to run and find 5 different leaves from different kinds of plants anywhere on the campus and come back as fast as you can. But do it really quickly, and 5 different ones." And so they'd do that. And I said, "Okay, now we get to experiment with some laughter." I said, "What I'd like to have us do is just laugh for 1 minute." Boy, is that a chore when you first say it. Laugh for 1 minute? Who can do that? Well, I think we can, should we choose to. No matter which way you laugh. As a matter of fact, I closed a program at Witwatersrand University doing that, because I thought I'd laugh them on their way. Again, this experimenting, as the kids hung out in that class day after day, and they would see me laughing all kinds of ways, with the hee-haw laugh, the knee-slapping laugh, the belly laugh, the and whatever kind of laugh that I could make up, so to speak, like Sebastian had us do, make up the worst laugh that you've ever, thought of or something, and experiment with life. So I challenge people, when you get in your car to go to work or to go to the market, just laugh for at least 30 seconds. And who's going to hear you except your car? And you're laughing, and somebody, as you're driving down the street laughing, somebody might see you and think, that was, look at that, or whatever. But who's feeling good? Who is feeling good with that simple tool that we all have, not just from this program, but from our life's experience? And this is what we so want all of us to continue doing. We have about a month and a half off before the next HR. We can be using some of this time to laugh, or cause somebody to laugh, or whatever you start inventing with your imaginal selves. Thank you.
When two are gathered in alignment, infinite capacity is revealed. Absolutely. And it's us aligning with ourselves, that potential, that opportunity to just crack a smile, share a smile, laugh, be happy, choose at some point. It doesn't mean avoid anything. It doesn't mean push something away or resist it, or you should do something. It means allow the invitation. Sebastian, you had something you wanted to share.
Yeah, to build. Yes, thank you. To build on Kurt's. So there's a very simple yet very impactful exercise to shift your relationship with any particular challenge you may have. A bit like if your challenge is in your eyes, creating distance with it. Mm-hmm. And the activity is to first focus, think, feel, align with your challenge, and then laugh 30 seconds. However you want, doesn't matter. And do that 3 times. And just do 3 times, minute and a half, will completely shift. I mean, I haven't seen any case where it wouldn't work. Shift your relationship with that issue, right? Where you realize that it's just, there's so much more. The illustration is, if I ask you what do you see, the answer is you can see everything in a 108 degree for where you are. There is the dot, there's the page, there is me, there is what's around you. There's always so much more than what we choose to focus on, which may be the little tiny issues we have in our life. And laughter helps to create that distance in any form you choose to use it.
That is so beautiful. That's a great image. Holy cow. Thank you.
We're about done with our time. I'd like to invite Jim back on, but if there is what's kind of moving through, I was listening to, is there anything else that wants to be in this space? And rather than what you have to share with another, how can you share how you've been moved, or what's come to Mitch, Steve, Sebastian, Raheen, or Kurt, what's come to you today, or this time that we've spent as a collective? How has that offered you more opportunity to smile? To what seeds has it planted? In what way can you show the people who are listening to this that just by gathering together, it can create the space for a smile? Does anybody have something to share with that? Mitch, you're nodding your head. Is there something in words to go with that?
That's a good question. Well, one thing that comes to mind is this topic or this gathering would continue, that it's not just one out of 531 Humanity Rising episodes, but it become a rhythmical gathering monthly, or at some to be determined or inconsistent interval. There's so much here, and I'm plenty of people not on this call who would benefit either contributing or listening. So just the thought to continue this in other ways.
If anybody has a desire to participate in something like that, I'm putting my email in the chat right now. Email me, yes, I would love to participate. And Kurt and I can sit with that more on what that would look like and how to offer it. So thanks for that, Mitch. Steve or Sebastian or Raheen, anything else that you feel moved to put into this space?
It's hard to talk about the heart from the mind. I think I would second what Mitch was saying. It's so from a feeling perspective, whenever it's a bit like so Jim going to chart, whereas this place which is this place architecture, that word.
Where you're going, Jim? He's trying to say the city.
Architecture, where
The architecture.
the architecture of perfect sounds, where when two sounds meet at the exact same pitch, they just they multiply because of the golden number and God knows what. The same thing here. So in both today and in our previous encounters, it's like when you meet people at the same wavelengths, it goes. The outcome is more than two. It's like magical mathematics. I've from the mind perspective, I'm walking away with just different ways of expressing what I'm very passionate about. I love was it Steve? I forgot who said Steve, this was you. The highest expression of scientific discovery is not eureka, but that's funny. A few words from paradox to paradise, nourish to flourish. Just small ways to say, wow, yeah, well, there's a flower here. I hadn't seen that flower that way. So just plenty of seeds to make plenty more flowers sprout.
Steve or Raheen?
I wanted to say I appreciate the synergy in this group and how easily the conversation was shared and built. It was really inspiring for me. And particularly, Rahim, I so appreciate that I wish I had that kind of courage when I was 15 to just say, I'm going to do stand-up. I did it, but it was for my classmates and so on. But to really accept your gift that early in life is really a phenomenal opportunity. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Like, I hate to be braggy, but I started when I was 11. So, like,
that's not bragging. That's just who you are, Raheen.
A simple fact, and that's it. And I want to actually talk about how this has flowed together. Look at who had that magic facilitator role. Carolyn is so great to be able to work with. And all of you have been so easy to get to work with. Why? Because of who you are. And we are so open and free together. And this is what we bring to life. Wherever we go, is this openness and freedom as we lighten up. Thank you so much for this beautiful program. And I'd love to hear what Jim has to say about it. He got to sit in the background and do his thing. Jim?
Wow, I agree, Kurt. This has been magnificent. And to your point, Mitch, Carolyn, and Kurt, we ought to think about doing this on a regular basis on Humanity Rising. I mean, Steve doesn't know this, but I followed Swami Bianananda for many, many, many years, and occasionally go into YouTube and see if there's anything new from what you have done. And Raheen, would love to have you do a session on Humanity Rising. Just do your stand-up routine as part of what we offer people, because you're so right. Laughter is I remember I was going to say laughter is the best medicine. Mm-hmm. And I remember learning that as a little boy out in Taiwan, of a son of missionary parents in a very puritanical, I would say cruel missionary school with a lot of discipline and so forth. And my parents got monthly the Reader's Digest.
I remember. Laughter
and in Reader's Digest, every month they had a little page or two of laughter is the best medicine. And I eagerly awaited Reader's Digest to read the jokes. Yeah. And sometimes I'd sit on my dad's lap as a young little boy, and he'd read it to me, or I'd read it to him, and we'd chuckle about this or that. And it was a beautiful moment. But I know we're out of time, but there's one point I'd like to make, and maybe have Raheen and Sebastian comment on, is what I noticed as a little boy growing up in Taiwan. was that the Chinese had a completely different cultural framework for laughter. That what would make kind of the Westerners laugh, the Chinese wouldn't kind of understand. And similarly, when the Chinese would laugh, the Westerners would be puzzled at, what are you laughing about? And so I just wanted to bring in the cultural nuances of laughter, that they're both existential in terms of expressing delight or derision, but they're very much culturally framed. And I've been accused many times in the West of laughing inappropriately because I learned how to laugh from Chinese. So it was quite a thing. When we just to conclude, I watch Stephen Colbert almost every day and The Daily Show, because I think the world is getting so weirded out that we actually need laughter as an imperative in our lives right now. It's not something that is a nice idea when we can get to it, but it's something that we need affirmatively to help us cope in a world that is spinning out of control. So laughter in my life is part of my practice, I would say. I really appreciate Kurt and Carolyn, the mastery with which you brought these people together. It's been a beautiful session and a beautiful way to conclude our Humanity Rising before we take this break. But Carolyn, you haven't said a final word. Since you moderated, I would invite you to just give us a final word, and then I'll close out with.
I was just thinking that I would love to thank everyone who is present in this synergy for the opportunity, and Steve and Kurt and Sebastian and Raheen and Mitch and Jim, for the time that the six of us spent together just creating community and getting acquainted. And I'd like to acknowledge that Raheen highlighted what that meant, even that us coming together the 3 times that we did in preparation for this, which we call it preparation, but really it was just the coming together. It was the willingness to show up. So thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to show up together. And I welcome everybody to feel our invitation to be the tap who creates ripples and causes waves of more smiles and laughter and happiness and joy, because you choose it. So thanks, Jim, for offering the platform. Kurt and I will get together with you in the fall, maybe when we come back. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for your time and commitment and your genuine showing up with building the tower to amplify all this. Thank you. I look forward to more.
And Mitch, that was a very good idea. I'm going to ponder that, see how we can integrate laughter and stand-up comedy as part of the menu for Humanity Rising as we move into the fall schedule. And just to say a word about that, everyone, we're going to start when we reconvene on the 6th of September with a week on regenerative health. And then we're going to move the next week into a 5-day program on the Amazon and the rainforest that will be convened by the Pachamama Alliance and Bill and Lynn Twist. And then we're going to be moving into another program on nonviolence. We'll be touching on the whole issue that we've raised many times before, with another week on the challenge of democracy in the United States and around the world. We'll be having other programs. Connie will be dealing with a 5-day program on the shadow work of those baby boomers and Gen X's as they mature and age, because of the data that's coming out that our shadow sculpts our aging. So we're going to be diving into that, and we'll have other programs on self-empowerment for your health. So we're almost completely booked between September and December with people that are just coming in to Humanity Rising with extraordinary gifts. And as you all know, we're evolving Humanity Rising into the Humanity Rising Network. We have so much content now that we're trying to figure out how we build from, the 90 minutes, 2 hours we've been doing every day to 3 to 4 hours, and begin to build a people's network where everyone can express their point of view, but all within the ethos of how we assist at this critical moment to enable humanity to rise. So that's what's coming up for the fall for Humanity Rising. Let me just close by, again, thanking everyone for your support and your attentiveness as we've been broadcasting now since the spring of 2020. When we started, we didn't have any idea what we were unleashing. But the enthusiasm and the contributions are continuing to increase. And we are in a posture of deep thanksgiving. So as we go to our annual pilgrimage to Chartres, to presence ourselves in the divine feminine with the deep faith that it is through the divine feminine that we animate the wholeness of our humanity. I want everyone to know that I'm going feeling elevated and supported and inspired by all of you that have made my participation in Humanity Rising possible. And I also want to note people like Kurt and Carolyn who have been weaving their strands with the strands of many, many others. And what's beginning to emerge for Humanity Rising is a beautiful, beautiful, it's almost like a basket of many colors, or a robe of many colors. And I think this may be one of the only broadcasts anywhere in the world where we just invite goodness and then let goodness say whatever goodness wants to say in all its splendor, warts and all. That's humanity. And that's why we are rising so rambunctiously, but abundantly together. So my heart is very full of all of you. And I'm deeply humbled and grateful for the presence of the true and the good and the beautiful in our world. We don't see it in the headlines, but it is all over.
Yes.
And it is what is most deeply true about our world. So in that spirit, I want to thank you and bring our session to a close. You're all welcome to the after session chat. You'll see the link in the chat box, those of you who can join. And we'll see all of you on the 6th of September for the renewal of Humanity Rising. Thank you all so much. I love you so deeply. Bye for now.
Cheers.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Great
Namaste.
session. Great grand finale.